Okay, disclosure time. I'm a director myself, but for many, many years before I ever sat my butt into the director's chair, I was a crew person, and I got to meet an awful lot of directors. Now, I'm probably going to be kicking a hornet's nest here, but in my time as a crew person, I have run into quite a few of the, shall we say, not great directors out there. So I felt it was important to add this episode in my series. Now, the horrible truth is that some people really have strange ideas about what it means to be a director. I blame Hollywood a little bit for this, not necessarily the Hollywood directors, but rather the way that directors are portrayed in films, with the emperor-like demeanor. When people get the idea that they want to direct a film, usually from a script that they've written themselves, they might have the idea that all a director does is like the dictator who barks out orders, and everybody has to listen to him, and his word is God. And unfortunately, that's a horrible attitude to take. My thoughts when it comes to being a director, and this holds true for being the captain of any team, is that you have to remember that it is a team. I've heard it best described as the difference between being a boss and being a leader. And when you're a director, you definitely want to be a leader. Leaders go the extra mile to go out there and make sure that their team's well taken care of and is a well-oiled machine to go out and do what they gotta do. And I've always looked at that as being the best way to handle a film set as a director. Unfortunately, there are those jackasses that seem to think that directors are emperors, and they will torture their casts and crew whether they mean to or not. They might believe that cast and crew are supposed to be subservient to them and jump whenever they say jump and ask them how high, but really, film sets are teamwork. A good director knows that the happiness of the cast and crew has some bearing on how smoothly a production will go. One of the important things is to take the time to schedule out things and make sure that your cast and crew has irregular breaks, eats on time, you have meetings with whoever needs to talk to you. Everybody's going to be coming to you for one thing or another, and you have to be able to balance a lot of plates in the air when you're directing. Now, this might actually sound like I'm making a joke, but believe me, I'm dead serious when I say that I have seen this happen. You'll have these directors who are more focused on the idea of being a director than they are actually doing the job. I kid you not, there was once a director who had a cameraman follow him around to take action shots of him being a director. It was absolutely ridiculous. But unfortunately, some people do have this kind of ego that needs constant stroking. Now, aside from the fact that I don't like being in front of the camera in the first place, I've never understood why people want to have a million photos of the director when it's the cast and crew who are the face of the project. I can understand, one or two posed photos for, if you happen to get interviewed, but honestly, it's all about the actors. They're the faces that people see. Now, here's one that's entirely too common, and I understand that there are two reasons for this. You'll find a director who is also a lead or a very heavily supporting actor. Now, in a lot of cases, it's the person is foremost an actor, and they're only directing because they wanted to be able to star in something. And the only way they were going to get to do that is if they directed themselves. I'm not saying that this is terrible, but I am saying that it is a very demanding job to take both roles, and it's very easy for a actor who is directing to slack on one or the other. But the second scenario is purely an ego boost for the new director who wants the attention on him all the time. This is the bloke who usually has a million photos of himself taken as a director, and then he wants to make sure everybody can see what a great actor he is too. Chances are really good he's neither. But back to the former. If you are an actor, and I mean a real actor, not somebody who just, maybe starred in your high school musical 25 years ago, but actually a real actor, you can pull this off. But again, be very careful about being able to balance the two jobs, because they are equally important. Your acting is going to be what people see, and yes, you will be judged on that, but your directing is where you're really going to get hard by the critics, because if you're slacking on your directing, it doesn't matter how good of an actor you're going to be, because the movie's still going to suffer for it. Now, remember I said that some of these egotistical directors seem to think that they're kings. And, like most kings, they think that they can just bark out orders and everybody's going to jump and make it so. That might work on television, but it doesn't work in real life. You can't go up to a costume designer and ask her to make, 18 dresses over the course of 3 days. It just does not happen. So, when you are starting out with directing, a good idea is to learn about other crew positions. At least get a general idea of how long things take and what people need in order to be able to do the jobs that you're asking them to do. If you're smart, you'll meet with all of your key crew people well in advance, and I'm talking several months in advance of when you're planning on shooting, or find out how much time they need by way of pre-production to get you exactly what you want for your film. One thing I've seen way too much of is directors that think they know how stunts and special effects are done. Trust me on this, special effects is what I usually do when I'm on a set as a crew person. I've seen directors put actors and crew people in some serious danger because it's all about getting the shot. And that seems to be what a lot of them believe is the mantra of filmmaking. It's all about the shot. It's all about the shot. Actors and crew people are disposable. Nothing could be farther from the truth. Chances are these blokes don't even have the insurance to cover it if somebody did actually get seriously hurt on their sets. And to be honest with you, I have seen people get seriously hurt on their sets. If you're going to do special effects and stunts on your projects, hire professionals and let them do their job. Don't assume you have any idea of how these things are actually done. I've seen directors who thought that a lot of car stunts were done, pretty much as they are seen on screen. They don't realize that the car is like 18 feet away from the actor and the actor's never in any danger. So, hire professionals when it comes to dangerous stuff. Let them handle it, sit back and enjoy the show. Now, these pretentious director types do tend to like their solitude when they're not in the center of attention, being on set and barking out orders. The reason for this is very simple. They don't want to hear the complaints. They don't want a million questions. That's somebody else's job to deal with anybody complaining or anybody who has some questions or concerns. They're going to set themselves up somewhere nice. I've seen directors get posh little hotel rooms far away from where the rest of the cast and crew are. They're going to do this to avoid having to do the real job of a director. Now, if you're actually a real director, you know that it's really important for people to be able to approach you. You have to make yourself available for people to talk to you about either their job or even their performances. Actors are especially needful when it comes to needing feedback on their performances, getting some ideas on how they can improve, making sure that you're happy. I could go on and on about when it comes to actors. The really sad part of it is that a lot of actors will tolerate all kinds of abuse from a director, and they'll leave with a smile on their face and they'll never complain, and they'll literally bow and grovel to these guys because they think that these blokes are going to be their ticket to Hollywood, and they want to make sure that they stay on everybody's good side. And honestly, it's that kind of behavior that lets these guys keep going. I mean, the truth of the matter is, if people were a little bit more honest, the industry itself would really, really benefit from it. Instead, you end up with people who will sit there, smile, nod, jump however high some pretentious little guy wants, walk away thinking this was a crap shoot, it probably isn't going anywhere, but in case it does, in case this guy is actually a hidden genius, or at least an idiot savant, then he likes me and I'll be hired again. Maybe I'll actually get paid this time too. It's tough. While the other type of directors tend to be focused all about themselves, when you're directing, you do have to remember that you are working with a team, and those team members need the encouragement and they need the praise, and sometimes they do need a little bit of criticism in order to be able to do their best and give you their best work. I've found it best to let the actors be actors rather than try to dictate every little thing they do, because their job is to portray these characters. My job is simply to guide them. When it comes to crew people, I prefer to let my crew members do their jobs, because chances are I don't know their jobs. I certainly don't know anything about sound or camera. But by encouraging your people and by being friendly and accessible, people are going to walk away feeling really good about being on your production, and they're going to have a very high opinion of you, and that's exactly what you need when you go to continue on with this career. And the reason I say this is because people talk. They might not talk while they're on a film set. They might be all smiles. They might be telling you how great of a director you are and how it's going to be the best film ever. And then when they're hanging out with their friends later on, the real stories come out. Trust me on this. I have heard so much green room chatter about who to avoid working for that I've actually turned down jobs from people who have gotten into contact with me simply because I've known of their reputation from talking to actors and crew people that I knew previously. But if people feel good about being on your sets and feel good about how you've treated them, even if they don't necessarily think that the project is the greatest thing in the world, but they like how you handled them, they're going to be telling people about that too. And that's going to really make it a lot easier for you to find casts and crews for future projects. You'll grow, and they know that. When you're starting out, they know that your projects are probably not going to be like Sundance worthy. But if you're really good about how you direct and how you treat people, they're going to be willing to help you move up to the next level and continue up that ladder. Now, this last bit is something I see an awful lot of, and it makes me cringe every time, and I can't think of any actor or crew person who doesn't cringe when they find out about this. And that is a director who realizes that their film is not the greatest thing in the world, and they're going to assign blame. They're going to blame the cast for being awful. They're going to blame the crew for being incompetent. They're going to tell people what terrible people that they worked with. And it's all about making them look like the good guys who happen to just be the victim of these horrible people that they had to work with who ruined their movie. It sounds crazy, but I have seen it a lot. The simple fact is, as a director, you are ultimately responsible for everything. You're the one who calls the shots. You're the one who decides how things are going to play out. You're the one who has a hand in the casting. You're the one who has control over what gets shown on that set. Therefore, it's your fault. It doesn't matter if you had a crew person that had a bad day and didn't quite do their job correctly. You should have been able to notice that and told him, hey, take 5, take 10, call in a replacement, call it quits for the day. If you didn't do that, it's your fault if there's one scene that's a little off. If you find that an actress is having a hard time and you just kept pushing and pushing her and you end up with a bad performance for one scene, that's your fault too. It's almost impossible to have a perfect movie, especially on a very low budget, but you do have to make those calls, and you have to decide what to let go and what to push for. Always understand that ultimately you are going to be the one who is blamed. So basically it boils down to what kind of director you want to be and why you want to direct. That's the biggest question of all. Why do you want to direct? Do you want to direct because you want to make art? Or do you want to direct because you want to make it to Hollywood and be a big kingpin with millions of dollars and big mansions and supermodels on your arm? If you're saying it's for the latter, you really just need to get out of the business now, because the chances of that happening are pretty slim. You've got better odds in Vegas. But if you're into this because you want to make art and you want to make good movies, then keep at it, treat your cast and crew fairly, and you might be surprised how far you'll actually get. I hope that you enjoyed this episode of The Unconnected Filmmaker, and if you found this information useful and want to be notified when the next video premieres, just hit that subscribe button. Or if you have anything you'd like to see an episode on, feel free to comment below. See you next time, and keep those cameras rolling.